I believe we're having artists write far too much. Now, instead of having 20, 30, 40, 50 songs to choose from for their project, now they're choosing between like 100 to 200 over, songs that they've written over 2 years. And now they have decision fatigue. There's so many choices that they don't know what to pick, and they don't know what their best song is anymore. I've been talking to different people on my team about different producers, different songwriters, something that I feel like I'm not the only one that's noticed this change. Welcome to the first ever Producer Points Hot Takes. This is where I'm just setting up a camera, setting up a microphone, and I just give a hot take of the day, of the week, whatever I'm feeling in the moment. I'm a very passionate person, and I like to talk clearly. And, today's topic is something that I've been bringing up in sessions. I've been talking to different people on my team about, different producers, different songwriters, something that I feel like I'm not the only one that's noticed this change, and that I believe we're having artists write far too much. Now, let me preface this by saying you will find clips of me from this podcast saying that I believe artists should be writing a lot. I do believe that. But I've been saying that for years, in the sense that a lot of artists, when they first start, they write their first 5, 10, 15 songs, and they'll release those 5, 10, 15 songs. Where it's like, no, if you're going to put out an EP or something, if, let's say 5 songs, like, you should write 20, 30 songs, maybe more. An album, you're putting 12 songs on an album, or you're getting ready to release like a single a month. Yeah, you should be writing 40, 50, 60 songs. If that. I think that's a lot. The traditional way how artists used to do, especially like bands, how they used to get ready for an album, is they would fully see through 30 to 40 songs, maybe 50, and then pick the best like 10 to 15 for the album. And that's how it was for a while. And I feel like everything changed post-pandemic really hard. It's kind of always been going in this direction of artists writing more songs ever since we got the technology to just pump out songs faster and get more demos done. But man, since the pandemic happened, I feel like because artists weren't able to tour and they weren't able to play live, and they weren't just like, I think the word is, they weren't interested, or not. And again, I'm not saying all artists, but many, they weren't interested in developing a live show. And I think what's happened is now because they're not focusing and putting their time on that, which they need to spend a lot of time on. I was an artist. I was in bands, like getting ready for live shows and getting tight and getting good and understanding how to work a crowd, like, takes practice and just takes reps, like just like songwriting does. But because of the pandemic put a stop to all that, I feel like artists were seeing success with social media in virality, in just putting out as much content and trying to get noticed by people just passing you by, as opposed to, again, because they couldn't because of the pandemic, but as opposed to the traditional way of, putting together a live show, going out and playing in front of 5 people. I know it's scary, but there's so much value in playing in front of like 5, 10 people. Figuring out your live show in front of small crowds and figuring out your voice and the things you want to say to the crowd, all that stuff. It's so much better to figure out in front of a small audience versus like, oh, your first tour, you had a song that was kind of doing well on TikTok or whatever, and you start playing to like hundreds of people, and you're like figuring it out in front of hundreds of people, and you crash and burn, and then people don't want to come see you again. People are a lot more forgiving when they understand it's like, this is a small show, you're not really known yet. I've seen many artists over the years play their first shows, and they were all very okay. We're talking about artists that have had #1 hits now. I don't want to like name them because I don't want to like say I thought someone's live show was okay, because that's kind of mean. But believe me, I've seen many people who have had like big songs, big artists. I've been to their first couple shows and they were fine. Always like they sounded good, but whatever. And anyway, my point being is that I think this shift happened around then. And because artists are no longer focusing on like playing these shows, just playing at, opening for whomever they could, just developing that, finding a band to like get tight with. Now they're just so much more focused on writing, and that's because that's what their teams are telling them. That's what their managers are telling them. That's what their A&Rs are telling them. That's what their publishers are telling them. And I don't think it's bad advice, because like I said, I've given the advice that that artists should be writing as much as they can for years. And I really do believe that, but to a certain point, right? I don't see the need in any way, shape, or form for an artist to write as much as like a songwriter or producer does. Where we're writing anywhere from, producers on the lower end, obviously, but anywhere from 100 to 300 songs a year. That's a high output, but we're only able to do that because like we're writing songs not always from our own personal experiences. We're collaborating with people. Sometimes I write a whole song, sometimes I write none of it, sometimes I write a line of it, sometimes I write a whole chord. It's always whatever. And when you're an artist, you're always kind of like drawing from yourself. And like I was an artist, and like I still do my own artisting. Like I don't know how anyone can write over 100 songs a year unless they're just some kind of freak in the best way for their own artist project and like fully fleshed out ideas, not just like little, oh, I had a chorus idea or I had a verse idea kind of things, like fully fleshed out song ideas. And, you just get like sick and tired of writing, and you're like, I don't know, I feel like it just becomes like this mundane thing. You're not out there living your life. You're not out there dating people. You're not out there having experiences. You're not out there, getting material to write from. Oh, man. And I think what ends up happening too is that artists now, instead of having, like I said earlier, 20, 30, 40, 50 songs to choose from for their project, now they're choosing between like 100 to 200 over, songs that they've written over 2 years. And now they have just decision fatigue, or they just like, there's so many choices that they don't know what to pick, and they don't know what their best song is anymore. And, the song that they wrote a year ago, now they've written 100 more, and they don't even have a perspective that like, hey, that song you wrote a year or two ago is really special. What are you doing? And now this is affecting songwriters and producers like myself, where I feel like so many of us are we're in this like weird going through the motions of just like, yeah, we're writing again with an artist, and I'm so thankful to be doing that. I almost only want to write with artists. But it's like the same thing where it's like, man, I just feel like artists are just collecting songs, and they're not doing it maliciously. They're just like, this is what, like I said, this is what their teams are telling them to do. You got to write. And, it just like ends up, I think, being a really big waste of time, not a waste of time, but it ends up like wearing on the collaborators, the songwriters, the producers. We're just working with these people so much, and we're making like, incredible songs, but now it's just like one song out of 100. And, and then the artist obviously wants to like sit on these songs for a little bit. So then we can't pitch them out or whatever. And that potentially takes up opportunities. I don't know what the solution is for that problem, but it's a thing that I think a lot of songwriters and producers are afraid to talk about, because it is, you don't want to like hurt anyone's feelings. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to scold anyone or anything by talking about this. I'm trying to get the word out and maybe try to encourage artists to push back against your teams. If they're telling you got to be writing like 3 to 5 days a week, I don't think that's true. I think it's perfectly acceptable for artists to be only in writing sessions 1 to 2 times a week. Or it's like you do spurts of I write for a week, and then the next 3 weeks I don't write. And then on top of that, I don't understand why no one's playing live anymore. I'm starting to see like artists that have been around for a while, but like young up and coming artists, I don't know if what the live culture is like anymore. I don't play out live, unfortunately, as much as I would love to, but I don't know if it's people have a fear of playing to like a near empty venue, or they have a fear of like putting themselves out there to like headline and they're not ready or whatever. But man, just play shows. I'm going to sound so old right now. Like I'm 36. I understand I've been around for a minute. When I was in my bands, like we would lean on other artists and bands in our town to like put shows together and like do it locally. Like it doesn't have to be a tour, but like the music industry is really small. Artists should be reaching out to each other and saying, hey, we should put a show on. Let's get 4 or 5 of us together and rent out a venue, or like talk to the venue, see what the deal is. And we each only play, like, sure, you can have like a headliner, quote unquote, but I think don't view it as like, this is, top artist show. It's like, it's all of your shows. You just figure out the order. You each get a 30-minute set, if that, right? Maybe a 25 minute set is probably better. And you just play shows. And I think you're going to like, it used to be such the norm that you would just play a show every, 2 to 4 weeks. And that's just not happening anymore. And I don't understand why. I think it's such a smart way to get like the industry excited about you. It's a smart way to like get your live show tight before inviting labels and publishers and like other people, where it's like you got to work out the kinks. And honestly, I, again, call me old fashioned, I really still believe that playing live is the best and most organic way to get fans. They're there, they're watching you. You have merch that they're gonna buy. You are so much more likely to get a fan for life playing a show in front of like 20, 30 people than you are just like putting something out into the ether on social media. And even though maybe you got 10, 20, 30,000 views, or maybe even 1 million views, I don't know. But like, I don't know if that translates to fans. I don't know if that translates to someone who's going to buy your merch. I don't know if that translates to someone who's like waiting for your next release. But you know what does? Live shows. Especially you play the live show, you go to your merch table and you talk to these people. You talk to your fans and you get close with them and you have this like really amazing connection. So, you know, I'm trying not to make these hot takes too long. I'm trying to keep them within 10 minutes. Here, we can even see how long am I going right now? I'm at just around 12 minutes, depending on how much I edit this. But yeah, guys, listen, comment down below. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Let me know what you think. This is just my 2 cents. I could talk about this for another 30 minutes, but that's not the point of these hot takes. I'm trying to keep them quote unquote short. So thank you for listening, guys. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Producer Points. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and share with fellow music enthusiasts. For an encore, check out our Spotify playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed on the show, giving you the perfect soundtrack to your creative journey. Additional audio and video editing for this episode was done by Nathan Rebello. Until next time, this is Justin Gamella.